There used to be a time, pre-industrial revolution era, where being average as a man, especially as a man, where being an average man was considered a superhero. Why? Because society was purely contingent upon your hard labor as a man. Now, in spite of recent events, catastrophic, global, vital, crucial events, such as the wars that are happening in the Middle East, and now apparently the US military is being drafted in, we are bound to enter a Passover. A Passover of, let's say, the separation from the boys to the men. There's going to be a great divide pretty soon where you can no longer afford to be just in the middle. Because imagine yourself as someone who's standing in between two boats, and both these boats are sailing in opposite directions, and you must choose which boat you want to be on. And you have to make that decision very quick, because the longer you wait, the more your leg is going to split and you're going to fall into the water. The Great Divide. Don't be a normie. Don't be average. Be significant. My name is MrShowTym, and you are watching the Showcast. Welcome back to the MrShowTym Showcast. You can no longer afford being average, like the average normie. You have to be a significant man of consequence. There was a time, pre-industrial revolution, where men and women accepted their natural roles as their gender roles. Okay, but we're gonna focus more so on men. We'll get to the women in a jiffy. I talk about men because what happens to men matters. Okay, that's what determines whether or not a society is broken or stable. There was a time where, during the industrial era or pre-industrial era, where society was contingent upon the hard physical labor that the types of jobs that men worked as, whether you're a plumber, you were a construction worker, especially a construction worker, because at that time we were going from the lesser advanced ways of living during the medieval times to the colonial times, where people were establishing first world civilizations and building. They were building newer, more advanced forms of infrastructure, railways, buildings, skyscrapers. But before we get to the skyscrapers, during the Industrial Revolution, you working a honest day's job for an honest day's pay makes perfect sense, right? Because you were taking care of your family, and our societies were far less complex compared to today. They were far less convenient. So you working as a construction worker, and you building railways and trains and modes of transport, you were a superhero. You honestly were. It was an honorable task an honorable journey for men to venture on. Being average, and that was average, because most men back then, they weren't these neutered herbivores that most men are today. Because most men today are herbivores. And I am not a herbivore. Okay? Especially not men back then. Society was a little bit more savage prior to, let's say, World War One. Society was way more savage. Being average, you had to be average because you had to protect your family from the lions and what the Americans say, the coyotes, the grizzly bears, the silverback gorillas, and yes, you had to fight them off. Men had to have enough tenacity and gravitas to fight off these predators. Because failure to fight off these predators spelled certain death, not just for you, but for your family. Now, fast forward decades later, humanity advanced, technology skyrocketed, and it created the more convenient, softer way of living that, I mean, some may say that we right now have reached the peak of technological, societal advancements to the point where now we are now trying to usher in transhumanism with semi-half androids and, Elon Musk chips in our brains. Without trying to go too much in detail with that, time portals with Terminator cyborgs entering, marching in to usher in the new world. Okay, I'm going too far. Okay, but stay with me. Some may say that we've reached the peak of. Some may say we can never really reach we haven't really reached the technological peak. But in a sense, we have sort of like hit a plateau. And being an average man right now, like I said, there's a divide is happening, folks. Being an average guy used to be considered a hero, okay? But today, it's quite the opposite. It is quite the opposite. Being an average person today, you are considered a loser. Being average equals loser. Being average equals normie. Being average means, by the name, as Sneeko says, a bot. You cannot afford to be an average normie. Being a normie means peasant. Because now we've moved from nationalism to a more globalistic society. Okay, people from all around the world can view me, us. We contact each other, and the markets have become global as well. Stock markets, commodities, gold, oil. Remember at the beginning of this video, I referenced the war going on in Iran, over there in the Middle East, with Israel causing problems forevermore. You do understand that part of the reason why that war is so crucial and so important, it is so important for us to cross our fingers. I'm not to say that I'm no longer holding my breath that it's going to stop, because there's no stopping it now. That war affects so many things, primarily with its resources. They export oil. They ship oil to the rest of the world, and a slight inconvenience, a slight slowdown in that process, the ships, an oil spill costs a fortune. It causes petrol prices, or as the Americans call it, gas prices, to skyrocket. Globalism, folks. This is why this war is so consequential. Very consequential. You see, like I said, with regards to being a normie, most people work 9-to-5 jobs, simple 9-to-5 jobs. And I wish I didn't have to necessarily crap on hardworking 9-to-5 workers, because they are important and crucial of keeping society running. They are. Okay? I'm sorry that I have to talk this way, but like I said, due to the fact that there's now like a slow and obvious and most certain divide, you get everyone else. You, me, everyone else who's not part of the elites. Who are the elites? Those are your Mark Zuckerbergs. Those are your politicians. Those are your tech overlords. Those are your billionaires that donate to the elites, that fund the elites with certain agendas and whatnot. And there's less of them, but there's more of us. And I'm saying to you, if you're a man, okay, with at least a halfway decent amount of talent, you have to find a way to utilize that and monetize it so that you can join, hopefully be amongst the elites, depending on your level of gravitas. Where was I? Oh yeah, of course. There's gonna be, folks, remember, I like to reference the Flintstones and the Jetsons. Do you know that the Flintstones and the Jetsons, most people believe that these cartoons are set in two different cartoon universes? Actually, the scary part is the Flintstones and the Jetsons are actually in the same cartoon universe. Most people think that the Flintstones are set in a timeline, in a prehistoric timeline, and that the Jetsons are set in some distant dystopian future, because the Jetsons are so rich and they have like this, they're privileged with technology. The truth of the matter is, the Flintstones are not set in the past. They're actually set in the same timeline as the Jetsons. So what does that say? Cartoons and movies will always give you hints of where society is going. Some call it Easter eggs, but are you aware enough to realize and notice? An economic collapse is certain, but it's not too late. You can still, well, it depends. which side of the spectrum do you want to fall in? You know the movie Elysium, starring Matt Damon, where the rich elite had that little station up in space. They're very rich and privileged, and everyone else was stuck here on Earth with scarcity and resource. It's up to you to decide, really. If you're not inspired today by people who went from nothing to something, look at Donald Trump. You do realize that there was a time where Donald Trump was not famous. He wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't born as a celebrity, not really. Granted, he had a head start because his father, he was an entrepreneur, a financier. So Trump had somewhat of a step or two ahead of the average normie. But even then, still, Trump still had to work. Trump still had to overcome some challenges. I mean, he's been bankrupt multiple times. If you go back and watch his documentaries, Trump has been bankrupt. And yes, he's had money problems as well. But it's all about finding a way to stay afloat with much cordial intent. And if you have enough cordial intent, you too can rub shoulders and be amongst the elites. Be amongst the privileged. This is coming from a person who I was born and raised in a relatively upper middle class neighborhood. I went to one of the best schools in my town. If not the best. Actually, no, scratch that. I did go to the best schools in my town. Folks, the middle class is eroding fast. Soon, us, there'll be most people, we won't be able to call ourselves middle class. You'll either be low class or upper class. And again, it's all thanks to globalism. As a man, everything's against us. Okay? Every single agenda you can imagine is anti-male. You have to, like I said, utilize people, because most men of today are just confused with no direction. Earlier on, I mentioned how just being average is now the new losers. The average guy is the new peasants. Why? Because the elites, that's exactly how the elites view the rest of us. A lot of us. There'll be politicians, governors, tech giants. The reason why they're so privileged is because they use your slave labor to keep them afloat. Now again, I've been through the educational system, okay, from the bottom up. I finished school, I went to university, I graduated, and I still wasn't impressed, because I saw that just working hard alone with your 9-to-5 job isn't enough. It's no longer gonna cut it. I mean, who do you know that works a 9-to-5 job and eventually they became rich by working a 9-to-5 job? I'm not saying you shouldn't work a 9-to-5 job, but the way things are going now, you're gonna need multiple streams of income, and there's a likelihood that you're probably gonna have to quit your corporate 9-to-5 job and run your own private businesses. Now, of course, is it easier said than done? No. But like I said, name me one thing in life that is easy. The elites, the system functions upon the work of the peasants. You know, I want you to think of a hamster that constantly runs on the hamster wheel, like, you know, that's the lot of you. I mean, I cannot imagine myself just being amongst the normal folks, because I still see a lot of people nowadays still being excited for getting their university degree, master's degree, whatever. And I'm saying to myself, what exactly are you excited about? Are you excited that you wasted 4 years of your time, of your life? 4 years you'll never get back, depending on how far you've spent in university. 4, 5, 6 years, or your PhD, whatever. You've spent at least 4 years of your life in hopes of begging the Agent Smiths for the possibility of being yet another peasant slave of the Matrix. All the while racking student loan debts along the way. There's something that just doesn't sit well with me with that. And therefore, I stumbled upon the Redpill, and I said to myself, I'm destined for better than this. I am better than this. I am better than sitting in an office cubicle. It's usually tiny, in a cramped up space, amongst 50 to 100 or even 200 other employees. Multiple buildings, okay? And you get to put on your Facebook bio, assistant project manager at Samsung or Google. It's all a facade that people put out there that there's someone. But really for truly, you're just peasants wearing suits and ties. Formal clothing. No offense. I'm a fan. I like formal clothing. Okay? As a matter of fact, if I get to a certain number of subscribers, I'm just going to start selling formal wear clothing. Okay? But oftentimes these people are nothing. Because outside of work, who are you really? If you were to just die in a ditch today, you're not gonna be remembered. Not really. You're just gonna be yet another statistic. And a lot of us, I said us, no, a lot of you are trapped in this web of the Matrix, because you have to take the poison shot, otherwise you don't come back to work. You are considered a super spreader if you don't take the poison shot to inject yourself and then all of a sudden die of a heart attack, because you have to buy into the lie that the agents perpetuated that, oh, there's a virus out there in the ethers, and due to the fact that there's a virus out there in the ethers, you must inject yourself with poison so as not to spread the virus to others. You don't want that, right? You're not a terrible person, are you? Are you? No, I'm not. Okay, good. So do the logical thing and take the poison shot. Seems very obvious, right? You see, that's how they get you. And then, not too long later, they change the narrative. They conveniently change the rules. Talking about, because they saw that not enough people were taking the poison shots. So they had to up the ante, okay? By scaring, fear-mongering a lot of you peasants. I mean, citizens. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? I thought I was thinking. That's how they view you, by the way. And then they changed the narrative. Talking about, you can still get the virus even if you've gotten the poison shot. So I'm like, wait a minute. So what's the point of me taking the poison shot if I can still spread it or catch it? Even if I've taken the vax, what's the point? You see, it doesn't have to make sense. Okay? Humans don't respond to logic and reason. No, people respond to emotional probes. Okay? You know, in the movie The Matrix 4, what's this guy's name? I forget this guy's name. The analyst. Okay? He said that you people, what really makes you tick, I'm paraphrasing, is not logic in emotion. Sorry, it's not logic and reason. Oh no, it's emotion. How you get people to do things, it's through emotion. Dan Locke has discussed this as well. How do you make people invest? How do you sell a pen to anyone? Convince them emotionally, not necessarily logically. I mean, you can make people invest and buy into a product or a service or something, an idea, not only by logic and reason, no, but through emotion. So how do they convince the normies? They're like, oh, do you want your granny? Do you want old granny to pass away because you didn't do enough to protect her by taking the COVID? I mean, do you want old grandpa Bob to suddenly pass away? And of course, a lot of people got triggered emotionally because they have family members, they have uncles, grandpas, grandmothers, parents. They want to protect that may, some of them they've lost suddenly. It's funny how they will say they go off of what the doctor, the what do you call this? What do you call this thing that thingy that determines your cause of death? Not obituary. I forget the name. But anyway, the autopsy. Yeah, the autopsy. The autopsy says died of TB. So of course it must be TB, right? As if doctors are never ordered to lie by the agent Smiths. They said that according to the numbers, the hospitals were filled with patients. To listen, hospitals have always been filled. This is why they book you into a hospital. This is why you're not going to get booking. They're not going to book you with a bed in a hospital. They're not going to grant you booking of a hospital bed unless there's a need to, because there's something called space. There's only so much space in a hospital. I was watching Neil deGrasse Tyson. Okay, it was over at the PBD podcast. He shot it like a year or two ago, a couple of years ago. And I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but obviously he himself is part of he's a creation of the Agent Smiths. That's how he came to be. That's how he became the now renowned, famous astrophysicist that he is over at Star Talk. Do you honestly think that the reason why Neil deGrasse Tyson is famous and popular as a astro scientist, physician, quantum physicist is because of his education and his insight and his knowledge? Now, granted, yes, he does have some interesting scientific insights because he's educated. But you don't get to be a figure, a famous, popular figure in whatever category or niche without first selling your soul and pledging allegiance to the Agent Smiths, the Jews. No, you don't get to be a US. There's no US government politician, US official, US government official that is pro-Palestine. And even if they are to a certain degree. I mean, the left are supposedly pro-Palestine and against Israel because, the left, the champions of victims. That's why they are, some of them are pro-Palestine. Now, the thing, what you have to understand with some of them is, don't be fooled by, who is it, by maybe Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Ilhan Omar, them being pro-Palestine. No. They are allowed to at least sell the idea that there's some politicians that are pro-Palestine. Because not every single government, US government official can be 100% pro-Israel, because that will be suspicious to the normies. Okay, so they have to play both sides, at least perception-wise. Coming back to Neil deGrasse Tyson, there was a part where he was talking to, Patrick Bet-David, and it's funny how it was at a time where, I forget the minute mark, somewhere in the middle of the interview, where Neil deGrasse Tyson expressed how he doesn't like debating. He doesn't see the point of debating, even with presidential debates, because it should be like, okay, here's my idea, here's facts, and here's your idea with facts, and even beforehand, if two scientists came to debate, already both of them know, okay, this is where I'm right, and this is where I'm wrong. Both of them. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, he expressed how he doesn't see the need to debate. Yet funny, soon after that, when it came to discussing, the poison shot, guess what he was doing? Debating with PBD. And of course, he was pro-vax. Talking about, yeah, but there was testing. Now, shout out to PBD. He expressed how, if you're going to dish out a vax out into the public, at least it has to be tested at a considerable, for a considerable amount of time. And 9 months is just not enough. Hence why we have all these side effects. Now, of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson tried to play it off as, oh no, but it has been tested, and to those who have suffered some side effects, it's just unfortunate. But trust the vax, trust the vax. It has been tested. There's data. There's studies. The data says that it's been tested. Look, something can be tested 1,000 times, 10,000 times. You can test poison by a crew of experts. But if you dish out to the public and people inject themselves with poison, they'll still die. Why? Because they injected themselves with poison. You can test poison 1,000 times, but it's still poison. And if you put it inside your body, you will die. So, but anyway, look, these are all these tropes that most people find themselves in the conundrum, and they have no choice but to, ingest the psyop garbage slop from the Matrix. And to me, it doesn't work out for me. Therefore, you must operate outside of the... You must at least operate in a more... You operate mostly outside of the Matrix. At least outside of its rules. Okay? Not completely outside of the Matrix, because everywhere is the Matrix. The Matrix is everywhere. Okay? No matter what country you're in, you're part of some jurisdiction. Okay? But you need to have a little bit more leeway to circumvent having to deal with certain BS from the Matrix. That's my point. And just being confined to one city, being confined to one place, being confined to one workplace where that's where you make your primary and only source of income. Because most people, they're one paycheck away from being totally screwed. And that's why most people cannot afford to talk like how we do. But that's part of the reason why, that's why we're fighting. Because now, freedom of speech has been, most people, they've sort of like tightened the noose of freedom of speech. They've shortened the leash of what you can say and what you cannot say. We are headed towards certain slavery. Slavery is certain. And for some of us, of which that doesn't spell well, the nail that sticks out gets hammered. Now, this is my favorite part. Folks, I have learned that yes, you piss off the Asian Smiths, they come for you. They shut you down on social media, you get fired from work, you get ostracized by the Normie peasant bots because they don't know any better. They just repeat what psyop garbage slop they receive from their programming slavery TV set because they don't know how to think for themselves. You should always take it as a badge of honor. Because most people, in the words of Andrew Tate, I'm going to steal from Andrew Tate here just for a second. Most people want an exceptional life. But they think that an exceptional life only comprises of the positives, the good parts. The glamour of, okay, no, pause, that's skittish. But you get what I'm saying. Most people want to live like James Bond. They want to be James Bond. Okay? Ask any man. Do you want to be James Bond? Oh yeah, of course. I want to be James Bond. I want to be James Bond. I want to drive an Aston Martin. Okay. That's nice. But you do understand that James Bond, although James Bond gets the girls and he gets to drive in Aston Martins and he gets to go to these 5-star hotels in Vienna, in Prague, in and these casinos, Casino Royale. You do understand that James Bond is also constantly being chased by criminals and thugs, villains, who are all constantly trying to take him out. Why? Because it's James Bond. He's an MI6 agent. He constantly has to sleep with, not just with one eye open, but with both eyes open. That's the life of James Bond. James Bond cannot just afford to just be amongst the normies and say, hey guys, I'm here, New York Times Square. Do you see me? Here I am, selfie. No, you're James Bond. Anyone can be an assassin. Because guess what? They always know you're here. Because they know you're here, anyone can be an assassin. And you need to be on the lookout. Always. Why? Because you take the good with the bad. Where am I going with this? Look at Andrew Tate. Became the most googly search person in the world. But now, he can't afford not to have a security team guarding him 24/7. Because guess what? With mass fame comes problems in the form of Agent Smiths sending anyone and everyone to come take you down in the form of lawyers, the courts, police, average normies who are triggered and offended by your takes on women and other hot button topics. You take the good with the bad. Okay? And you get to spend time in a Romanian dungeon, in a Romanian slammer, because you pissed off very powerful people. Now, all is taken as a badge of honor, because if you are the type of man that has had certain people with a considerable amount of power and authority, they discuss your name behind closed doors of how they're going to get you or take you down, take that as a compliment. That is just flattery. It's flattery. Because one of the worst things you can be as a man is some insignificant mortal flea that no one cares about. And that is most men. That is most people. Coming back to, loserhood and being an average person today, working a 9 to 5 job. I'm married with kids, I'm like, no, listen, I am in no shape or form crapping on married people for being married, but I am crapping on just being average and insignificant. Because most men are average, they're insignificant. I even see it on Facebook. If I see on Facebook, okay, most men have become docile. Men are the new women. Men are the new women. Even me posting my stuff, my body of work, my videos. 10 years ago, usually it was men that would go back and forth with me in the comment section, discuss, this and that, okay? Some say they were simping, yeah, some of them they were simping. But nowadays, it's less of the men, but more of the females. So in other words, it clearly lets me know that men and women have switched. Because women back then, women are feminine and docile because they don't want to cause a stir and be arguing back and forth, especially not with another man. But nowadays, that's exactly the case. It's the men that are now like, oh, I don't want to cause a stir. Okay, I can't afford to be out here, offending. So for example, if I post something with attacking, well, not attacking, just highlighting the flaws of feminism and how wrong it is and how much of it is a psyop, I don't get pushback from. Well, I do get from men that simp, but I get engagement more from the women, married women. They're the ones debating and arguing with me. I'm talking about a whole woman that has her whole profile picture is her children, and her husband, and half a dog with 3 legs, with the spot over its eye. Okay, it's the women that are the ones that are more forthcoming with their opinions. That's a masculine trait, by the way. So it clearly lets me know that there's the Asian Smiths have successfully turned men gay, and they've made women more masculine, and it's scary. Okay, because most men have just become docile, which is why, again, I say unto you, if you find yourself being matrix attacked, okay, take it as a badge of honor. Because it really is. Why? Because you take the good or the bad. You being attacked and slandered in the media, talking about, oh, you so misogynist and you whatever. That is an exceptional thing. Exceptional thing. Look, you have to take both the negative exceptional things and positive exceptional things. Because law of the universe, you take the good or the bad. Exceptional things happen to exceptional people. Andrew Tate got perp walked back in 2022. When he got arrested. That's something that really took him over the top. It made him even more famous. Look at Donald Trump, all these made up charges that he went through. Exceptional things happen to exceptional people, whether it be both positive or negative. So you have to find a way to, become exceptional. And you can start by utilizing your best talents, finding a way to monetize it, gain a huge following, have some eyes on you, and then find a way to sell products and offer services of value. Offer services of value. So yeah, that's my advice to my followers and listeners out there. And yeah, time is running out. You have, but you can become success. You can become significant and exceptional today, but it's your choice. You have to decide to be exceptional and significant with much cordial intent to be significant and exceptional. If you've been watching this far, thank you so much for watching. And remember, the Matrix has you. Follow the white rabbit. And don't fall for the psyops. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.
Away.